This is week 14 of the 52 weeks of picks. This week's theme, fire. For week 14, we have a setup here, the little images that Asher had drawn. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And you can see, try and get some focus. And you can see we got a little cutouts of a little fire engine and a little campfire there. It's all drawn on paper. And just colored it in with some coloring pencils. And I'm going to light up the scene and see how it works out. I'm trying to get my focus again here and see what's going on. All right, well, what I want to start off doing here is take a couple of test shots and find out what my proper exposure is going to be. I have a flash here set up, which I have to put on my flash trigger, which I don't see down here. Of course. I probably don't even have it down here. It's most likely it. No, I gotta go upstairs and grab it now. Alright, well, as you can see, the setup here, I have the umbrella once again with a remote flash being triggered by the Yongnuo flash triggers. And I have it set to 1/4 power. Do a little test. There we go, and she fires. My settings on the camera are f11, 1/60th of a second, and that's at ISO 100. So I'm gonna kneel down here and try and compose a shot. Turn that backwards so I don't. There, let's see. And I'm using my center focusing point and turning it onto autofocus. I'll zoom out a little bit. And give this a shot and see how that looks. And that's pretty evenly lit. But I think I want a little more focus up in the front here. Let me switch my focus point. See, I'm too close to that, so I'm try and find a place in the middle somewhere. And boost up my shutter speed a little bit. Zoomed in a little too much. There we go. Let's see. And that's not too bad. Except the fire is right in the middle. I'm not sure I like that. So maybe I don't want to cover up any of the other stuff. So I'm going to try a higher angle. Let's get real close to the fire. You can see it in the frame, but it's not taking away from anything else in the image. And that's not too bad, but maybe crop out a little bit more on there, cut a little closer on it. Try and get the top of the building in there. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. You can see there's flames there in the front. And maybe I'll take one more shot. And I'm completely knocking the flames in the front and the foreground here out of focus. But you can tell that they're there. There we go. Focus lock. Get a little, move over just a little bit. Try that. It's not too bad. I think I like the other one better. Maybe not. Just don't like it dead center of the frame there. Let's move that over just a little bit. Try and catch Screaming Sally up there in the top corner. Yeah, I like that one. All right, maybe just a little bit higher. Try and catch some of those windows on the top of the frame. Try that. Might be able to add the white in Photoshop over there on the one side. But I think that works. All right, guys. I'm going to head over to Photoshop. We'll put some of these pictures up while I'm shooting so you can see, and we'll see how it works out in Photoshop. I'll see you there. All right, now that we're in Adobe Bridge, here's the images that we've taken in the video, and this was just a test shot over here. And the last one is the one that I chose, which is highlighted here, and I also give it a 5-star rating so I can easily find it. It's going to double click it now and open that up into Camera Raw. And first thing I want to do here in Camera Raw is make it a little darker in the blacks here, just so these lines really show up. So I'm just going to go over to the blacks and move it to the left, which will make them much darker. Normally I just go down the line here, but I'm just going by what it looks like to me and what I think it needs. And to me it seems a little bit too dark overall. So I'm just going to increase the exposure a little bit. Maybe a little bit more, right around there. Still, the whites look a little pale, so I'm going to brighten them up by using the white slider. And I'm going to move that up pretty high. Looks good right there. Increase the contrast on that. That'll also make it a bit whiter. Maybe not so much. Let's try right there. Actually, it's starting to have a little funny thing going on over in here, so I'm just going to move that down just a little bit more. Say 25. 24, that looks good. We'll move the highlights up as well. Let's go to about 20. All right, 21, that looks good. And seems to have a bit of a blue cast to it here. So let's just increase that a bit. I mean, this is a fire, right? So let's move that up a little more. Let's go to, say, 6,000 degrees. Oop. Control Z. That was +4, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just move this to 6,000. And now we have a little bit of an orangey look to it, which isn't bad. And now I want to saturate some of these colors here, like the reds and maybe a little bit of the yellows in here, and maybe the oranges a bit. So I'm going to go over to the HSL grayscale sliders here, and I'm going to start off by moving those reds right up. You can see they're really showing up in the reflection down here when I go too high. So I'll go somewhere in the 20s. That looks pretty cool. And let's do the yellows as well here. I don't want them radioactive, but I'm going to go pretty high with it. And the shirts here, we got the aqua, which is in here. We can increase that as well. It's not doing too much, but it's actually showing some shadow underneath them when I raise that up, so I'll do that. And the blues as well. Don't want to go too high with it. Just enough just to give it a little bit more color. Okay, I think that looks pretty cool. Let's bring it into Photoshop. Alright, the first thing I want to fix here in Photoshop is this, this black spot over here. So I'm going to go and hit the M key to get the marquee tool, which is right here. I'm just going to draw a line, a square, goes all the way down here, right up to the edge. Right around there. I'm going to hit Control J, or that's Command J on a Mac, and put that onto its own layer. And then, see the layer selected here, hit Control T, which brings up our handles. And I'm just going to drag this right over to the edge. Maybe increase the size a little bit. I should have went right to the top with that. And I'm going to hit Enter. You know, I didn't get it all the way to the bottom there. It wasn't the best selection, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to go right back to the beginning here, right before I made the selection, and I'm going to remake that selection just to make sure that I get a better selection here. I'm going to go right to the top corner here and move all the way down to the end. A little wider. Try not to pick up any other things in there because it'll show up when you stretch it out. Now I'm going to jump that to a new layer and then hit Control T again and extend that over to the edge and hit Enter. There, that looks much better now. We have all these little stretches over here, but that's going to get covered up. I'm going to really see that. I'm going to put this into its own layer by selecting these two and hitting Control Comma, which is my Smart Object shortcut. So I want to keep those combined and keep everything look nice and neat. Yes, you could put it in a folder, but I like Smart Objects. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is, I guess, create some smoke to make it look a little more realistic. I mean, how realistic could it be, really? Because it is a drawing, but I'm going to create a new layer. Oops. Create a new layer there. Oh, I actually created two by accident, so I already had created one. There we go. And I'm going to go up by holding down the Alt key. I'm going to go to Filter and Render Clouds. Now what that does is just makes it a higher contrast. It makes the blacks blacker and the whites whiter. I'm going to zoom in here a bit, about 50%, holding down the space bar. Just going to look around for a nice area that has, you know, some grays and some whites and some blacks in it. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to make a brush. Try this area here, or actually, let's go with this area right here. I'm going to hit the Q key, and that turns us into a quick mask mode. I'm going to hit B to go to my brush, and I'm going to check out what brush I have here. Let's get like one of these wacky little brushes here. This one looks pretty cool. It's got some rough edges on it. And I'm going to make that brush a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to start to draw in this area here. We want our opacity to be at 100% though, so we can select all of this here. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Maybe this isn't the right brush for this. Let's see. Let's use this one here. Yeah, there we go. It's a solid brush. I'll make that a bit bigger. And I'm going to make it like an awkwardy, cloud-looking type of spot here. That looks cool. Now I'm going to hit Q again. And you see it made a selection, but it actually selected everything else but this spot. So I'm going to have to hit Control, Shift, and I, which will invert the selection. And now I'm going to hit Control L, which this selected area will be affected only by this levels adjustment here. And I'm just going to increase the contrast in this area. I'm pushing everything to white and the other things to grays. And just being sure to move whatever is gray in here in our brush is going to be semi-transparent, and whatever is black in here is going to be what our brush is, and then the white will not be seen. Okay. Now I'm going to go up to Edit, Define Brush Preset. And you see we have a little simple little cloud thing going on here. Don't worry about this little bit on the edge here. We're not going to really see that. So I'm going to type in I'm going to type smoke. So we're going to name our brush here. And then I'm going to hide this layer because we don't need to see that anymore. Hit Control D to deselect that selection. And back off just a little bit here. Go to about 25%. Select this layer and create a new layer, new blank layer here. And right now, our brush does that, which we have to fix that. So I'm going to hit F5, which will bring up the brush engine. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to the brush tip here. And I'm going to increase the spacing. So you can already start to see our brushes here. Each one of these little tips. I'm going to Shape Dynamics. And I'm going to increase the size jitter. So we get a variation in sizes. And I'm going to leave Control to off. I'm going to have our angle jitter so it does change. And it's not going to be the same exact looking thing every single time. And the roundness jitter, which will help flatten some of them out. I don't want to go too much, but that'll be okay right there. And I'm going to go into scattering. I'm going to click on both axes and just scatter that just a little bit. I don't want to go too much. We'll put our count up to, say, 2. And we'll leave that at 0%. And let's give a quick draw. Now you can see what this is doing already. Okay. So I'm going to hit X to switch my colors here. Back to black there. And I'm just going to move the opacity down very low. Say maybe 5 or 6%. 7, that looks good. I'm just going to start to draw. And as I go over it, you can see it starts to build up the smoke here. Let's put some out of here as well. And vary my size, make this a little larger too. I didn't like the way that one hit. A little random there. Yeah, that's going too low, so I'm going to go backwards. That's the scattering, so I'm going to turn that off for the time being. I'm going to hit F5 again, go back to scattering, and just turn that off a minute. And this way, I can actually target where I want this smoke to go. And, you know, when you have smoke going, you have different colors in there as well. So let's add like this brownish color to it as well. We'll do the same thing, very low opacity. Let's put some browns in here. And I'm going to make the brush a bit smaller here. And I'm going to go and put white in here and just add some puffy white clouds coming out. I'm going to have to increase the opacity on this because the white's not showing up too well. Let's go about 40%. And that might be a little too much, 40%. Let's go down maybe 24%. Let's try that. Make the brush a little bigger. There we go. Oops, I hit my hand tool by accident. Alright, well, I think you get the idea. You can sit there and play around with that for a while more if you'd like, but I think you get the basic idea of what I'm trying to say. I'm going to go to fill screen here. And I'm stuck in there. There we go. Alright. And there you have it. That is Fire for week 14. Alright, guys. I will see you next week. Bye.